Okay. Whew. Let's see. Oh, my goodness. All sorts of issues going on. But here we are to talk college football on another bowl night here at MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Apologies all around on this one. Appreciate everybody who's dropped by. And certainly we're here. We are here on a bowl night, the second of two. Memphis up big. We'll go through the scores. We'll go through the news of the day because there are some important things going on to talk with all of you. So again, much appreciated everyone who's here. And apologies all around. Let me get to it here. Web security. So that's the game plan when the run. Simpson at end. I believe we've got some news here in the chat as well. We'll get to just a second. Courtney Fisher, you work for the team as an assistant coach. That's awesome. Don't know what we're going on with there. Our guy Vinay used to help produce at the game film. Man, we got all sorts of Alabama football fan roll tide. Good to see you always supporting. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yakov. I wish. FAU in Memphis. I did have it on, but I've got no idea what's going on other than Memphis had a big lead in this one. Oh, it's 18-0 at halftime. 18-0 at halftime. We're still looking for our first decent bowl game. Appalachian State beat North Texas by 1 million. I think it was 56-28. Then Nevada took it to Tulane by about 20. We got this game here. The earlier game, BYU killed UCF last night. Anything else that you guys have here? And man, am I needing of a laptop right now. So we'll, maybe Santa Rogers will bring that, meaning me. Okay, let's get to it in regards to Arizona's got a new head football coach, Jed Fish, former Michigan offensive coordinator, UCLA offensive coordinator, New England Patriots as of more recent, taking over for Kevin Sumlin. This was the Patriots quarterback coach, Jed Fish. New head coach at the University of Arizona, 44 years old, replaces Kevin Sumlin. And the two finalists were Fish and San Jose State coach Brent Brennan, who I believe just received a contract extension. You guys may have seen the comments made by Florida linebacker James Houston about the Big 12 and the SEC and the Big 12 and how the Big 12 is not on the same level. Oklahoma's okay, but not on the level of Florida. And that should be something that if I was a head coach, my goodness, if one of my players was that much of a moron to say something like that, yeah, there'd be some punishment to come. Terry Bowden named the Louisiana Monroe coach. Terry Bowden's been coaching forever, since the early 90s at Auburn. Most recently at Akron University. Again, we talked about the contract extension for San Jose State's Brennan. Zaven Collins, a tremendous player, awarded the Nagurski Trophy. Chase Bryce, transferring again, Clemson to Duke, now to Appalachian State. All right, good stuff. All right. Our number is 860-325-3687. Oh, man. Got Vinay here. Man, on top of it when it comes to the Buckeyes here. Mark, per your earlier comment, you were correct. Jameson Williams turned upfield because there was no room on the sideline, and the interception, but the play call there was questionable. Cheryl, good to see you as well. And here's the number, 860-325-3687. Before I post it, of course, Amazon's the link for you to grab when you're doing your Amazon shopping. It's in the description section of all the videos. The Amazon link, that helps us build the channel. That helps us build the channel. Super Chat's available, and the phone line's 860-325-3687. And again, appreciate everybody being here tonight. And not much of a football game again, with Memphis beating Florida Atlantic 18-0. Brady White, his last game at Memphis at quarterback, taking on Willie Taggart and company. We just concluded a really good Florida State Seminoles live show. Hopefully you checked that out. If not, check out the replay. It's posted. Had a fun time there. I believe John Sarian, who just made a comment, was in on that one for an entertaining Florida State live show. All right. We typically do our SEC live show on Wednesday night, but must be Christmas Eve. Must be a Christmas Eve deal, and I know that that's a few hours from now, but basically Christmas Eve. The usual run of guests from a number of our SEC contributors on a Wednesday night. they not available. So again, SEC Live typically coming your way every Wednesday night. And probably should take a poll to see if we need to continue that show. Not necessarily enough Wednesday night SEC Live support, but we typically have a great run of guests on that show. And again, because of being Christmas Eve tomorrow, nobody available for our SEC Live show. And certainly I can understand, because I am well behind in regards to getting ready for a lot of things that I've got going on Christmas Eve, which caused me to be late tonight. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football.
Hey, Mark, how you doing? Brandon here. Merry Christmas.
Oh, Merry Christmas to you. I appreciate the greeting there. Good to hear from you. Is this, you said Brandon?
Yes, sir.
Hey, thanks for calling. What you got going tonight?
So, you and Bobby Durkins, and I think this is a growing topic now in college football. You and Bobby Durkins were talking the other day, and you said that, there's really only 3 teams in college football right now, and they're kind of overtaking the playoffs. They're kind of overtaking college football, and they're kind of sucking the life out of college football. I just want to tell people that don't really, that think that this isn't going to end anytime soon. It's not. Ohio State just signed a dude named Quinn Ewers.
Yeah.
He's a sophomore. He actually has a higher grade, according to 247, than Trevor Lawrence. He has a perfect 1,000 grade. I mean, if you play Madden, he's 100 overall. They're returning a bunch of guys. They're not going anywhere. The Big Ten is no Big Ten team. They just signed the number 3 recruiting class. There's no big team. Jackson Smith, Julian Fleming. I mean, they got weapons all over the field. Clemson, they got DJ Uyunglele coming back. He's going to be a sophomore. Dabo Swinney even said in his practices that he's scared that receivers are going to get hurt. I mean, he has a laser arm. EJ Williams is really coming into his own. They just signed the number 5 class. Justin Ross is coming back. I mean, they got dudes all over the field. I mean, just elite level talent. There's no ACC teams that even come close to them. And as it goes with Bama, I don't know if you saw, but 247, their top 2 recruits are offensive tackles. And they are, unbelievable. I mean, they just signed the number 1 class. They have the best overall rating per recruit. These teams aren't going anywhere. And that's why we need to expand the playoffs, because if you look at past playoff games, especially with Clemson, Deshaun Watson really made millions technically in those playoff games because he put a name out for himself. In 2015 and 2016, Alabama was littered with NFL talent. I mean, it was absolutely insane. And Hunter Renfrow was another one. Isaiah Simmons, which he was a 3-star, which people don't know, and he was from Kansas, and he actually was a late commit to Clemson, and Clemson just, Brent Venables, best defense coordinator of the country, really developed him real well. Their player development is absolutely unreal. That's another thing. So I think if you expand the playoffs to 8, I think Joel Klatt just said on Colin Cowherd's show that he wants to see 12 to 16 teams because, you're getting to these bowl games and no one really cares. You got Pitt opting out. You got all these guys opting out. And, we don't really know how to judge a season anymore because if you don't make the playoffs, it's like, all these players are opting out. They don't really care about these bowl games anymore, which used to mean a great deal. So I think if you do 8, the recruiting kind of gets more evened out because then these players can really market themselves and really put themselves on the map with, because all eyes will be on that game, rather than a bowl game and no one's really watching. So I just want to hear your thoughts about that.
Well, I didn't really agree across the board. What this brings to mind is what should be the motivation of expanding the playoffs? So I think we need to get a lot of really smart people in a room, and smart not necessarily meaning educated, really smart people coming from all different angles of the college football universe, and get those people together for multiple conversations, for brainstorming, for listing of why would we expand the playoff? Because my main incentive in expanding the playoff is that I want just fairness and equity. I just look at, and people misread me when I point to the NFL. I don't want the NFL. I don't want to be creating something that conjures up or has the goal of bringing parity across the board. If it's going to be inequitable and unfair, or there's not going to be great competition across the board, so be it. Let the people that want to win and have the resources and can put that forward, let them just go ahead and win. I have no issue with that. But right now, it's impossible to evaluate and judge these teams fairly and properly. They don't play enough games against each other. So I want to expand the playoff in conjunction with rectifying scheduling, because the schedules are not equitable or fair, certainly out of conference, but also in conference. The SEC and the ACC have 8-game schedules. They have 14 teams. Therefore, every team misses 5 teams in the conference. Therefore, all you have to do, and I typically do this in the offseason, is look at the conference schedules and let people know, wow, look at the disparity between, let's say, LSU's schedule and Missouri's schedule. They're not comparable, even though they play in the same conference. So I would want to bring in conjunction with the playoff, I think the scheduling needs to be fixed at the same time, because I want to bring as much objectivity to the playoff system as possible, but you got too many teams to completely bring objectivity to it. Again, it's not the NFL where you can just set up rules and say the best records go to the playoffs. That's all there is to it until you fix the scheduling. So I think both of those should go hand in hand. And then you got to build like a model and test it out versus what's happened in the past to say, okay, if we implement this system, what would have happened in 2020? What would have happened, well, forget 2020, 2019, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14. And how would this play out? And is it going to make sense? What type of matchups is it going to produce? And will it be fair and equitable across the board? And so what results is it going to bring? And if you do those few things, then you've tested out your playoff, and you know what kind of environment it's going to create. For example, and then I'll let you talk, is that people's claim and criticism is that if we go to 8 teams, we go to 16 teams, then it's going to water down the season, and it's going to create matchups late in the season that aren't meaningful, not because they're not meaningful because the teams aren't good, but because the teams are too good, and it's a non-meaningful game because they can both lose, either one of them, and still go to the playoffs, and therefore it's a meaningless game. Well, you can test all that out versus history if you build a model and say, what would have happened all these years with this model? Therefore, we can go through with this model, or, we need to tweak it a little bit. And that's what I believe we need to do. And I really love 16 teams. That would be phenomenal. If you look at the 16 teams that would have made it last year, it would have been a hell of a playoff.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I totally agree. I think even if you just before the season, if you just said, if you're a college football, junkie, and you ask anyone that knows a lot about college football, they can guess the 3 teams that were going to make it. Now, if you go to 8 teams, I think you can still guess the 7 out of 8 teams. I think the 8 team is just going to be an outlier. That's why I think if we're going to expand the playoff, I kind of want to go to 12 and 16, because then you at least you don't really know. You don't really know the 12 to 16 teams. I think we're getting to the point now where college football is so predictable. It's kind of stuck in a life. Everything is getting subbed out. I mean, and I don't really know when what the contract's like. I don't know. Are they going to, how long are we going to go with 4 until I don't know how that works, but I don't know when we can start talking about 8 to 12 to 16. But I think college football, now teams are just like, we made the Orange Bowl, which was a really good bowl game. That was a really good bowl game, and now they're just like, oh, well, I'm going to opt out. I'm going to go to the draft, and, I'm not really going to. So I think if you go to 12 or to 16, it kind of just, I don't know. But then you got to have to, go to, instead of 12 games, you got to go to 10 or 8. There's just way too much that goes into it.
I don't want buys. So I don't want 12, and I don't want 6.
Then, could you imagine Alabama, Clemson, or Ohio State with a bye?
Well,
this
this is the reason why buys don't work. And I know that the next step for a lot of people is to go to 6. But the reason is all you have to do is do exactly what I proposed when you asked the initial question, is go through previous seasons, and you try to figure out and tell me in a reasonable way, in a fair way, what 2 teams would have received buys all those years. You can just go to 2019. We can start there. Clemson, Ohio State, LSU are all undefeated. We go to 16 playoff. Who gets the buys? Which 2 teams out of those 3 get buys? You can't fairly distribute it like you can in the NFL and say, we've got an objective system where buys are earned based on A, B, and C, best record, and then the ties are broken this way because everybody plays such an overlap of a schedule against everyone else. It's fair. Nobody argues about it. It's not controversial because it's fair. And it's proven out over and over. And again, it's self-contained within 32 teams. So there are teams that have tougher schedules than other teams, but it's so razor close. It's not an issue. But to give a buy to, again, you can go year to year to year, and I would challenge anybody to come on here and we could debate the selection of the buys, and it's not fair, and you just can't determine it. And then the advantage to that is obviously the entry into the second round automatically, number one. But there's such an advantage on the field to receiving the bye, in addition to just you've eliminated the possibility of losing. That's the biggest one. But beyond that, just the wear and tear, the ability to game plan ahead against, if you're Alabama, you're sitting there and you're waiting for the winner of Stanford and Texas, then you can game plan and strategize and watch, and one of them may lose their best wide receiver, and so I don't like the buys. I don't think they work.
Right? No, I'm totally with you, and I'm just gonna say, if you're an SEC hater, or if you're for this 18 playoff and you think it's gonna be a fair field, I'm just gonna tell you, if you take 5 conference champions, you have Alabama being the SEC champion, but then you have Georgia, Florida, and Texas A&M. Please tell me how you're gonna leave all 3. You're gonna leave one of those 3 teams out, because we all know that I think Georgia on paper is the 4th best team in the country. Maybe Florida. Florida obviously beat them, but on paper, Georgia is the 4th best team in the country. I mean, their recruiting classes over the past 2 years have been the best in the country. So if you're a Coastal Carolina fan, or if you're a BYU fan, or if you're a UCF fan, even if you expand to 8, I don't see how you have a shot in. I really don't. And I just don't know how they have a shot. The only way they have a shot is from 12 to 16 teams.
Yeah. So here's the deal, that you either have to make a fundamental decision to include the group of 5 or not include the group of 5. And I can see pros.
They should include the group of 5.
I can see pros and cons either
one. Oregon just
one.
won the Pac-12.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I can see merits to either one, but to your point, the 8-team model should not include the group of 5, and if it does, it's just an automatic berth given to the one team that goes undefeated or has a loss and is the group of 5 rep. But that still is not really equitable to all the conferences. I would go there. I've listed a number of models that I would do, whether that be the 8 teams with the 5 from the Power 5 that won conferences with 3 at-large, and the at-large, there'd be a system, a formula that would select them, or you go to 16 teams with all the conference champions, and then you're more of an NCAA basketball model if you do that, because you have to be okay with, Brandon, if you follow me, if you go 16 teams and you include all the conferences, I mean the Sun Belt and the MAC, then you're going to have the 11 best teams in the country in your 16-team playoff, because you're going to have the 5 power conference champions and then 6 at large. So those 11 teams are going to be the 11 best teams in the country. And then you're going to have, like, the American Conference champion might be the 22nd best team in the country. And then your MAC champ might be the 60th best team in the country. And your Sun Belt Conference champion might be the 63rd best team in the country. And so you're going to have to be okay with that system and having that kind of disparity in the playoffs. And I don't have an issue with that, because it gives access to everyone, but it weights it toward the strong conferences and the power teams that are earning it on the field and are truly the best from a talent standpoint.
But if you go 12 to 16, how many games? How many are you starting the season earlier? Are you cutting games? Are you cutting out of conference games? Are you cutting conference games? There's a lot that goes into this, because if you play a 15 to 16 game schedule, I don't think people understand. I play football. I don't know if anyone else out there, has gone through this, but when you play football, after 8 to 10 games, you're really feeling it. I mean, your body's feeling it. I just, what are we going to do? How are they going to really go into that? Like, are they going to cut games? Are they going to, cut conference games out of conference? What is that going to affect? And is that good for college football? I don't know. I mean,
yep. I should dig up the video and reproduce it that I posted, I don't know, about 5 years ago, where I built a 16-team playoff and I went to an 11-game schedule and I gave everybody 1 bye week. I think I started the season, and we already have this where we've got about 5 or 6 games on week 0, mostly from the group of 5, but certainly there have been Power 5 teams that have played on week 0, and so it's the last week. It's instead of the Labor Day weekend, it's the weekend before, and you start and you only play 11 game seasons instead of 12, and you give everybody 1 bye week, and then everybody gets a bye week, I believe, after the conference championship game to start the playoffs, and then you play the playoffs, and you're done at the same time.
Okay. Yeah. I've always loved college football, and I know you have too. And I just feel like if we go to 16 teams, the only problem I have, or 12 or 8, is upsets are kind of, that was a cool upset, but they're still making the playoff type deal. So, there's a lot that goes into this. I don't think really people understand. It could really change the landscape of college football as we know it. So, but I also could be very good for college football. We're going to go, I think we're going to go to 4 to 8. I think it's going to go to 8, and then it's going to go to 12, and then it's going to go to 16, and then who knows what's from there. We all see with March Madness, it's gone up every year, almost. Not every year, but, every couple years. So, 64 wasn't enough. So let's get 68. I'm kind of scared for college football in that aspect. but I don't think really a lot of people like the BCS system. And so we went to 4, and I mean, 4 is, I really like 4 because I like the debate. I think it's such a good debate system, but I think even if you go to 8, it's such a great debate system. And even if the people say that with the 14 playoff, they're everyone can predict the 3 teams, but I think if you go to 8, you can predict 7 of the 8 teams.
Yeah, I can follow you there. Hey, Brandon, I'm going to take some of these other calls, but I appreciate you calling in. And this is
I appreciate it. Yep.
an endless topic, certainly, but it's a great one.
I appreciate you, Mark.
Thanks, Brandon. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too.
So, man, gotta let you guys know, boy, I'm just getting on my game here. So we had a lot of things go on that obviously delayed the show. So we appreciate everybody hanging in here, but believe we're finally getting into it. We appreciate the call from Brandon to get us going. Had a number of people calling at the same time. So please call back, 860-325-3687. Yeah, the playoff. Wish I had a calendar in front of me because, again, it can be done. It can be done in a reasonable way to protect the athletes and not in any way overextend them. Sounds like my next off-season project because this debate is heating up more so, I think, because of what we're watching right now than ever before, even though this has always been a pet. I hate the term pet peeve. I throw that out. This has been a topic on my mind every season because I hate the way we select playoff teams. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's Byron.
Hey, Byron. What's up?
Not much. I sent you a link to a YouTube video about the first Silent Night about 2 years ago. Did you ever actually watch that?
Oh my goodness, I can't remember what happened 2 days ago. So you sent me a link to.
It's a PBS thing, and it was on. It's on YouTube, and you had to pay for it, but. I just wanted to know if you watch it.
I'm sorry, Byron. That doesn't come to mind in any such way. What's it about?
It's the original story of how the song the first Silent Night came about.
Oh,
how it was written and everything. It's a really cool story.
Wow, I hate that sometimes people comment to things and leave things that I don't. I certainly am just going.
You're not offending me if you haven't. I know you're a busy man. You get tons, but go check it out. And for everybody listening, go look it up because it's a really cool story. It makes me. I love Silent Night.
So yes,
and actually, knowing the history behind it, it's really cool. Really cool.
Yeah. So
I watch it basically every year. It's narrated by Simon Cowell.
Really? Okay.
No, not the one from.
Oh, okay. From
American Idol.
Yeah.
No, Simon Cowell. Yeah. Same name, different person.
Okay.
But what are your thoughts on this upcoming Clemson Ohio State game? Because I know y'all wanted to get some revenge.
Well, let me make a comment about Christmas and Silent Night because I know after I get into Clemson, Ohio State, I'm going to forget. I'm too absent-minded sometimes. So Silent Night, Simon Cowell, Google search it out there, everyone. I'm going to do the same. Christmas is my favorite holiday, but not because it's festive and all the amazing things that go on, and the all that stuff is great, the gift giving and so forth and so on. But the gift giving is a symbol of the Lord Jesus Christ's gift to the world. And so the true meaning of Christmas is why Christmas is my favorite holiday. And yes, the even without, I'm sure I will appreciate it 1,000 times more. But even before watching this, yes, if you really listen to the words of Silent Night, it's an amazing, just an amazing depiction of what transpired, what happened on that night. It's a very touching, moving song. If maybe it becomes too routine and well known for a lot of us that we don't listen truly to the words. But it's a very passionate song about the the birth of Christ. Great stuff, Byrick. Clemson, Ohio State. My general thoughts, to be very blatant, is that Ohio State was a better team last year. Not by a lot, but I believe that they were the better team. I believe that they blew the game in a number of respects. I thought that Clemson took it away from them in some respects, meaning that Clemson was able to adjust with Trevor Lawrence as a runner and with Travis Etienne as a pass receiver out of the backfield when Ohio State took away Travis Etienne as a traditional runner from a running back position and took away Clemson's wide receivers. Ohio State, of course, blew red zone. See, anytime people talk about blowing red zone opportunities or turnovers deciding a game as that being the factor in why a certain team blew a game, I want to know what happened on the turnovers and what happened on the red zone opportunities. Because I
also have to say, I want to just say that good defenses get those red zone stops.
Exactly. That's the point I'm getting to. So sometimes you'll analyze a game and you'll hear people talk and say, so-and-so beat somebody 35-31, but they turned the ball over 4 times. And the other team didn't. And if they wouldn't have turned the ball over, well, they would have won the game. So they were better, but they just turned the ball over. Well, all turnovers aren't created equal. There are turnovers that are created because the quarterback, I don't know if you follow the NFL, but I'm drawn to the Steelers-Cowboys 96 Super Bowl game. And Neil O'Donnell just completely missed the receiver twice, two times in the fourth quarter. Neil O'Donnell, Pittsburgh quarterback, just completely threw to a spot and had a miscommunication with the receiver. And Larry Brown both times just happened to be standing there. The ball was thrown right to him. Then he just takes over and, goes to the other end of the field and almost has pick sixes that decide the game. He didn't make a play on the ball, aside from doing what a football player should be able to do when a ball hits you right in the chest, catch the ball. He didn't do anything. He didn't read the cut. He didn't do anything. So those were gifts. Now, that's the Steelers' fault. But it's I separate, or there's a missed exchange between a quarterback in the center, the quarterback and the running back at the mesh point, where, the defense is going crazy because they recovered a fumble, and they should, but they didn't make a play. The quarterback and the running back had a miscommunication on the mesh point and just dropped the ball. Versus the defense making a play when they have a great defensive end who the left tackle can't handle, and he keeps coming around the edge, and he strip sacks the quarterback and knocks it out of his hand. Well, it's a football play that was made by the defense. So to your point, I saw a combination of those two things with Ohio State failing in the red zone. Sometimes J.K. Dobbins and Justin Fields, when J.K. swung out of the backfield, had a touchdown, and Fields threw it just a little too far, and J.K. just let it bounce off the ground when he hit the ground. No Clemson player made a play on the ball. They were completely duped. Ohio State didn't complete the play. There were examples of that, but there were examples of Clemson stopping them in the red zone. There was a combination. But I believe Ohio State was the better team. Now, I'm not taking anything away from Clemson. It doesn't matter what I think. Clemson won the game.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that I'm judge and jury and Ohio State was a better team. I'm just saying that's my opinion. We all come away from games thinking usually that the team that won the game was the better team, but sometimes that maybe the other team was a better team. And I do think that the officials' calls were, I thought all of them were not slam dunk one way or the other, horrible or correct calls. It just so happened that there were 4 of them, and they all went against Ohio State.
I would hate for that game to be. I would hate for as intense of a game as that was.
Yeah.
For that to be played this year, because the refereeing has just been atrocious this year. They would have messed up so many other things. But are you slightly worried? Justin Fields doesn't look as good or as solid as he did last year.
True. So,
what do you think that is? Is that because he's feeling pressured because he knows that he was having less games in his season? Because he did not look good against Northwestern. He looked very off.
The 2 best teams.
I just wonder if that was anything that had to do with feeling pressured to look good in that game. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think that Justin Fields played nothing but exceptionally last year. The Clemson game, he played pretty much exceptional, except he made 2 interceptions. One was his fault. The other one was a miscommunication, of course, that ended the game.
Mm-hmm.
And again, credit, was it Smith or was it Muse that made the pick? Whoever, the Clemson safety, that made the oh my goodness gracious.
I think it was either Muse or Turner.
Turner made the pick. Nolan Turner made the pick.
Yeah, and he's going to be out.
And Clemson shouldn't have to apologize for that. He caught the ball. The ball was thrown right to him. But again, Ohio State blew it. Ohio State blew. And again, Clemson shouldn't have to apologize for that. And that's what football coaches mean when they say more games are lost than are won. It would have been, for as great as the game was, a little bit more suspenseful and meaningful had Ohio State not had that miscommunication. And I'm not even saying they would have scored on that play. I'm saying they had the ball at the 22-yard line, and there was plenty of time left. There's like 45 seconds. You know, it could have been even more dramatic. It could have been down to the 4-yard line with 9 seconds left, and who knows what would have happened. So Clemson didn't need to make a play there, but Ohio State gave it to him. The reason, where were we in the conversation? Because I was going to relate that to this year. Okay, Justin Fields.
About like how Fields hasn't looked.
Yeah.
Anywhere near as good as he did last year.
Yes. So I made this statement all off season. I made this statement right after the game. And again, not making an excuse for Ohio State, because if we measured every athlete on the field, there are guys playing at 90%, 80%. They're all over the place. They're nicked up. They're not at full strength. But Justin Fields played with a knee brace for the last 4 or 5 games of the season. He was not as mobile as he could have been. So I just clearly stated that's part of the game. That's just the way it is. But it would have been interesting to see Justin Fields at full capacity as a runner, because as soon as J.K. Dobbins got hurt, and what did he run for? Like 170 in like less than 3 quarters. You know, he was tearing him up, but he sprains his ankle, leaves the game. And if you watch Ohio State's play calling, they became a drop back passing team after that, because they had no Fields to run it. They had no J.K. Dobbins to run it. And they just became a pocket passing team in the 4th quarter. So while I was focused on, okay, it'll be interesting to see Justin Fields at full strength and fully healthy, from an athletic standpoint, Now we're getting in Justin Fields that's not playing well coming into the playoff. The two best teams the two best defenses he faced this year, Indiana and Northwestern, they're not, I don't want to say they're not close to Clemson, but they're not as good as Clemson. But I think that Northwestern doesn't get their due, but they're not as athletically gifted. Yeah, they're good teams, especially Northwestern defensively is really good, but they're not as athletically gifted as Clemson. But now we got Fields playing two bad games against, well, they were two different games. He played a flat-out bad game against Northwestern. He played a pretty good game against Indiana. He just made like three bad mistakes that made his line look bad with 3 picks. But he threw for 300 yards and he had 3 touchdowns, and he still played an overall good game. But he made bad mistakes. Against Northwestern, yeah, he just played an awful game. Now he was missing his best receiver.
Yeah, that's about. I think that had a little bit to do with it. I think he was in his head a little bit because he didn't have his top receivers, his go-to guys. I think that had a lot to do with it.
And there were plays in which he had plenty of time and should have been able to, he had that 3 beats to be able to go boom, 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 make his read, deliver the ball, and he screwed it up. But a lot of it was he had no chance.
Play with that. I think he probably saw the same thing that I saw, where I'm trying to think of where I saw it on, but they were literally showing him he was rolling out to the right, and I think he was looking at Garrett, and he just needed to let the ball out, and he took 2 more strides and then let it go, and the receiver thought that he was going to tuck it and run, so he broke off his route, and you could just see the miscommunication between him and the other guy. And actually, if you continue to watch it, Fields went up and actually talked to the receiver and was like, "Yo, what exactly?" I don't know what they were saying, but
was that when he threw the interception at the sideline? That play? Yeah. At first glance, my thought was that the receiver made the wrong play because he ran upfield, but I would like to watch that again because some people made what might be an astute comment that the receiver had run out of field. He had nowhere because
I mean he can't. Go ahead.
I just want to say because Justin Fields hesitated, like you said, 2 beats too long. Well, the pattern was shot, and so the receivers do what they're taught to do, and that's that they have what word am I looking for? They break off the pattern, and there's 2 or 3 different ways in which they can break off the pattern depending on where the defender is, the rest of the field they have to work with, and the quarterback knows, okay, they're going to go this way or that way. Based on where we are in the play, and then Justin Fields still threw the ball, and it got picked off. And I think that was his. I think initially I thought it was the wide receiver's fault, but I think it was his fault.
Yeah, no. If you go back and watch it, you can clearly see he needed to let it go about a stride and a half before. You could kind of see that he didn't trust the receiver because the receiver was open. He had the space in front of him. It would have been one of those things that, like, if it were to Trevor Lawrence to Amari, it would have been out.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And you can clearly see that he just didn't exactly know and make sure that are you gonna come back? You gonna cut back to get this? Oh, and as soon as he decided, it was too late.
Yeah, exactly. I appreciate the call, Byrick, and again, thank you so much for giving our night a little meaning past college football. That means a lot to me because ultimately, for as much as I love college football, I want to talk college football, I would like to do a little bit of good in this world as well, which we try to do behind the scenes, but actually in front of everyone is good as well. So thank you so much for bringing that to
Yeah,
light,
no-
and
no
Merry
problem.
Christmas to you.
I think we've all been to a candlelight service before, right?
Sure.
Y'all have a good night.
Absolutely.
And Merry Christmas.
That's awesome, Byrick. Thank you so much. Merry Christmas.
You're welcome.
We got Big Load in the chat, and I appreciate Big Load being here. 04, 04, 04, 04. Okay. 0 for 4. That looks like a passing line or maybe a batting average. 0 for 4, 0 for 4, 0 for 4. So Big Load we'll get to you in just a second. But I love having Big Load here. We welcome everybody's fandom. And there we go.
The call will start.
So we'll get to that in just a second because I'm crying. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
The man that gives college football its voice, Mark Rogers. Hi, and how are you, sir?
I'm doing just fine. I got to tell you, I'm going to be very open with everyone. Man, our first of all, I was late, and I truly apologize for that because that's now been 2 consecutive nights. But man, you can't predict what happens in this world and in this life and so forth.
Right.
And number 2, because of that, I thought I got off to a very rough start, didn't know what I was talking about, what I was going to talk about. And usually somebody sparks me in the chat or I get a call immediately that can get me going. But I was just kind of fumbling around there. So I appreciate everybody hanging with me, and I think we got things rolling now. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, we missed you a little bit last night. It was like waiting there for you for a while, Mark. I was wondering when you were going to show up.
Yeah.
So I wanted to give you a call. I heard, by the way, I listened to Buckeye Talk today, and I saw the question that was thrown out about, and we talked about this once before. I want to kind of go back to it for a second because we maybe didn't get a chance to expand on it, which was the BCS era a more competitive era than the playoff era? And I think looking back on it, in some ways, yes, in some ways, no. I will say this. I mean, you still had dynastic teams, obviously, during the BCS era. I mean, to be fair, the Alabama dynasty, to a great degree, started during the BCS era, obviously, in 09. So their run started, over that particular period of time. The other thing that I would say, I mean, obviously the USC run, you could say that. Miami kind of had their period until the Buckeyes beat them, of course. And then, you could say also maybe even Florida State, maybe the first 3 BCS championship games from 98 to 2000, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So now the question I asked you before, I'll put it out there again, Mark. Did you ever, though, go into a season, let's say in the early 2000s, late 90s, within that time frame, seeing, I guess this is where we would go with the statement, in seeing as great a gap between the top 3 or 4 as you see now, as compared to, let's say, 2003?
No.
Where, just to throw out a year between 98 and 2013. Because I don't remember seeing that great a gap between the top 3 and, let's say, 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 in 2003, just throwing out a year, than I do, let's say, now in 2019, 2020. Is that where kind of you were going with your thought earlier in the day? And just kind of give me your view on that.
Yeah, so I was going there anyway, and as you mentioned, there was a comment in the live chat that went right along with it, and Tony made a point that when you only have 2 spots in the championship game, and maybe let's say you have 4 teams that dominate college football, but it gets a little bit jumbled up as to who's going to make those 2 spots, then it looks to be more competitive than it is, because one year it's Alabama Clemson, the next year it's Alabama Ohio State, then it's Clemson Ohio State, then it's Clemson LSU, versus now when you got the 4 teams and it's Alabama Clemson Ohio State and somebody else every year, it's like, well, this is the same thing over and over. These 3 teams are dominating the sport. And I think there's some merit to what he was saying. Tony's a very intelligent guy, and I think so, but I would also argue that, and the counterpoint I made to that was, yes, in any given year you could say that, but we have a situation for 6 years now, basically 20 for some of them 2014, and then Clemson jumped on board in 2015. So 2014/15 to now, 7 years, 3 teams.
Right.
You can't take a 7-year block during any of that time and say, pick your 3 teams that dominated the sport. They don't.
Sure.
There's not a 3-team contingent that accomplished that.
Well, I had made this comment before, and I also heard your comment last night with the Oklahoma fan a little bit in regards to this. And kind of looking back, and you mentioned even the poll era back in the 80s and even into the 90s. I think what had happened over that period, let's say pre-BCS, Mark, and I know this from being an Ohio State fan, you obviously remember this as being an Ohio State fan, like if we would have had this conversation in the late 80s, early 90s, what would we have said would have been the obvious goal for the Buckeyes? Which is still one of them, beat the team up north, win the conference, and go to the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
If we were having this conversation in 1993, you would have said that would have been the goal. Now, I agree. I think once you win your first national championship, it makes you hungrier to win another one. So maybe, as Buckeye fans, we probably set loftier goals after 2002 when Tressel kind of broke through. Although I would argue that the Buckeyes were already a national title contender back to 1995 with, Cooper's first truly great team. Mm-hmm. Maybe even 93, but definitely by 95.
Yep.
Because obviously they finished number 2 in 96 and 98. But, that being said, I think that once we were more regionalized, because what we were in the poll era, Marcus, we were more regionalized. Because every conference was just kind of playing to win their conference and get to the sugar, get to the rose, get to the orange, get to the whatever. They weren't thinking 4-team playoff, what have you. And I think that's the adjustment. Is that a pretty fair read as well?
Well, I got to tell you, Dave, I am really knocking that one around in my head just based on my own personal experience like you are, because we talked the other night about the first Ohio State games that I watched, the first college football games I watched, whether they involved Ohio State or not. I remember watching Oklahoma and Florida State, and I remember watching the 77, 78, 79, that run right in that range. There was a season in which Ohio State lost to USC, as you well know, in the 79/80 Rose Bowl by 1 point, costing them a national championship in Earl Bruce's first year. Meanwhile, Alabama's winning Bear Bryant over Lou Holtz at the Sugar Bowl to win a national championship. And I caught up to speed on what the narrative was pretty quickly at 8 or 9 years old to say, okay, these Ohio State teams I'm first watching in 77, 78 aren't as good as they're supposed to be, because Ohio State was contending for national titles for that 4 or 5 year run, 72, 3, 4, 5 in that range. So once they surprisingly got to that position in 79 for the 80 Rose Bowl, I had a taste of that to know that for then the rest of Earl Bruce's run, why aren't we getting there? Because, I'm watching Ohio State, and sure, they made the Rose Bowl in 85, but they were 9-2, so they couldn't win a national championship. And I was watching Orange Bowls and Sugar Bowls late on New Year's night thinking, I want the Buckeyes to be in that position. Ohio State should be in that position. And shoot, if we wouldn't have lost that game or this game, we would be in that position. So I certainly had a thirst for that. But you're right. The Michigan game was everything, and that usually was connected to going to the Rose Bowl, and that was the dream, the vision, the prize. So I don't have an answer for you, because I felt both of those tugs in my fandom.
Sure. Yeah, because it wasn't like 84 with the 9-2 team, with the Myers team that went to the Rose Bowl, was necessarily a bad year. It was still you still accomplished the goals of beating the team up north and going to the Rose Bowl, which, and I kind of did this a little bit during the Tressel years, where I would separate a very good year from a great year. Obviously, to me, a great year is winning the national championship, of course. But let's say Trent's last 2 years, where he won the Rose Bowl and he won the Sugar Bowl and went 10-2 and like 12-1. I would say those are very good years. I wouldn't say they're great years, but I separate very good from great too. So I kind of differentiate those things. I mean, you know, to a lot of fans, like I hear Bama fans say from time to time, it's obviously all above. Either they're going to win it all or it's just a horrible year. You know, I hear a lot of their fans say that. So, and I get it. I think once you win one, and then once you kind of get on this historic run, it makes you that much more to want to win them. But I just think as far as like a solution kind of going forward, Mark, because obviously we're not going to go back to the poll era. We're not going to go back to the BCS era. So I think the only logical solution to make it more competitive is obvious, which is pure expansion. I mean, and I think that's why you see more and more people. I've heard Urban Meyer, I've heard Joel Klatt, and Klatt was very hesitant. I even think Urban was hesitant to say they're pro-expansion. Now, have you been pro-expansion from the get-go, Mark, or were you kind of like early on, like if we had this conversation in 14, 15, were you like more of a fan of 4?
I was 16 years old. I wrote something, I wish I could dig it up. This thing was like about 3 inches thick. I wrote something about a 16-team college football playoff in 1984. And then I remember I was typically the knucklehead that would do things like this. I remember writing a term paper in college in an English class, and I had to get it approved by the professor because it didn't really meet the stipulations. And I kind of reworked my term paper to write this 16-team playoff and really have to sell it as this is something valid to write about. So this is like in 1989. I wrote that again. So yeah, I proposed a 16-team playoff a long, long time ago.
Right. Well, yeah, and I think a lot of college football fans, obviously, was always talked about during the BCS era. It was actually even talked about in the poll era. I remember people would say, "Why doesn't college football have a playoff? Why doesn't college football have a playoff?" And people were just beating down the door for forever. So. But, I mean, obviously, it took us forever to get a BCS, to be perfectly honest. You know, so, and, you know, that, I think there were some pros to the BCS. I'm not one of those that completely trashes the BCS. Now, you weren't the biggest fan of it, were you?
Oh.
Or did you? Okay.
I laid it to waste. I hated the BCS more than I can explain.
Okay. All right, well, I mean...
What did you like about the BCS? Give me the BCS merits.
Well, first of all, I like that, you know, as watching college football through the poll era, I like that just for the fact that we finally had a championship game per se.
Sure.
So we at least finally crossed that bridge. I thought that... I do think, Mark, and this would be an interesting, obviously, off-season project, and I know I mentioned this to you before. I do think if we examined all 16 years, I bet they got it right more than they got it wrong, which I'm saying that they got it right at least 9 or 10 times compared to got it wrong. Good off-season project, Mark, but it would be interesting to see it.
I don't agree.
Well, we would have, I don't know if we have the time today, but I would go down with it and we could evaluate it one time. And I know that's more of an off-season thing, but I would be very interested to run down through them all year. Because I know a few years they got it right. They got it right in 99, they got it right in 02, and they got it right in 05. I'll give you 3 years right off the top of the bat if you think of those years.
Okay, so I'll make the disclaimer out of the gate that there were years in which I think they blew it, but there are more years than any other category I can put it in that they didn't necessarily, the BCS didn't necessarily blow it, but there were teams left out that had just as good an argument as one of the teams that was in. You can make a very strong argument that a team was left out that deserved it just as much as a team that made it. Starting in 1998, the very first year.
You know what, and I hate to say that, well, let me say this. I hate to say this from an Ohio State fan, because I'll go to my grave saying the 98 team was the best team in the country. I'll go to my grave saying that, and I would love to have played T. Martin in Tennessee on a neutral field today, tomorrow, and the next day, because we would have beaten the pants off of them. I say that SEC curse that Ohio State had would have been over that day. What I would say is this. I think that to a great degree they got it right with Florida State and Tennessee. You could call me crazy, but I think they did get it right. Who do you think? Do you think Ohio State would have been the team that would have had a better chance for it, or who would you have said other than Florida State? Because obviously Tennessee deserved to be there.
See, this is where I take my opinion out of it of, oh, I think this team would have won and beaten that team. And I don't even go that route. I go the route of, we had one undefeated team, Tennessee. We had 6 teams that were one-loss teams that won conferences.
Right. But you had a few of those that, remember, Kansas State blew it to Texas A&M in the Big 12 title game. And then UCLA had to play that rematch game.
Yeah.
In the Orange Bowl. Right. So they both those teams kind of blew it, Mark.
How did they blow it? They lost a game, but everybody else lost a game.
Yeah.
So you had, let's count them off.
All
Ohio
right.
State, Wisconsin, Arizona, UCLA, Kansas State, and Florida State. All were 11-1.
Right.
You had 6 teams that were 11-1. How do you differentiate who goes? Florida State lost. So Florida State was chosen.
Mm-hmm.
It could be argued they had the worst loss. Ironically, and this happened a number of times where you would think, okay, we can't distinguish these two teams, but if we could, we're not going to take the team. It was almost an anti-playoff selection committee making their selections against Ohio State. The BCS would routinely take the team that lost the worst game. They did that with Oklahoma. They did that with Nebraska. They would take the team that got destroyed. And Florida State lost to a 6-5 NC State team 24-7. And that was the team that the BCS computers chose.
Right, but what was the thing about those losses, Mark? And this is what I go back to. And I'm not justifying what they did, but what that theory was at that time, you remember this, it was always better to win as compared to win. It was always better to lose early rather than to lose late. That was the theory at the time. I'm not saying it was the right theory, but it's better to lose in September than it is to lose in late November. So, I mean, you can say that's a right or wrong theory, but I believe that was the theory at the time. Because it's that last impression.
Sure. And you know what? I can even give some validity, some credit to that analysis that in this particular football season, Oklahoma lost its first 2 games. They went on a run. They won 8 consecutive games. Are we evaluating the complete resume? Or are we evaluating where we think this team has arrived in December? And I can see merit to both systems. But you know what? If you're going to wait the season as it unfolds, have another metric that says we're going to give 0.5 wins to the first win of the season. Then we're going to give 0.7, and you'd have to distribute it evenly and find a metric that would do it. And then this would be some kind of adjusted record metric. I don't necessarily agree with that, because then Oklahoma might be playing Kansas the last week of the season and they get credit for 1.8 wins for beating Kansas 59-0.
Sure.
But it was almost comical the way the BCS system selected the team that looked at the worst in a particular game that was usually right before they're playing for a championship.
Okay,
Now, I agree. I think there would be a way. See, and that's the imperfect thing about both systems, to be honest with you, Mark, is it's tough for them to give us, let's say, metrics, or they're very inconsistent on what their metrics are to put this thing together, whether it be the BCS or be the playoff. We're going to put more merit behind this as compared to that. You know, that's where I think that it's tough for both systems, has not been perfect. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
So I think that's a larger problem. By the way, did I give you a good off-season project, Mark? Is that something to take a look at?
Oh, man. I love
the BCS years.
I love that. I'm actually, David, sitting here listing out years that I would certainly question.
Can I throw out one, Mark?
Yeah,
Can I throw out one?
Sure.
To me, it's an obvious one. Would you have done the rematch in 06 as compared to having Ohio State play Florida?
No, I don't like rematches unless they're earned. And certainly now we have hindsight that anybody who would propose a rematch would get laughed at because of what Florida did to Ohio State. But I did think it's funny because Urban Meyer then became the Ohio State coach that I thought I was put off by his politicking for. And I thought the polls manipulated the end result. And because if I remember this correctly, Ohio State beats Michigan. They're 1-2, 42-39. That's Thanksgiving weekend. There's another weekend that the SEC still playing, and Ohio State, Michigan, they stay in those 1 and 2 spots. And then Florida beats like a number 12 or 13 Arkansas team. They don't kill them by any stretch, but it's not down to the wire. They've got a 1-score lead late, and then they tack on a touchdown, and they beat them like 41-28 or something like that. And then Florida eclipses Michigan based on that win that I didn't really think justified the flip there. The flip should have been made earlier because people didn't want a rematch. And I understand people didn't want a rematch because that game had already been played. Much like what we saw in 2011. I thought the two best teams played in the national championship game, but I didn't think that they should have been playing. I'm not remembering whether
not Iowa State, but Oklahoma State, I think.
Yeah, Oklahoma State lost to Iowa State. That's a bad loss, but my goodness, you talk about bringing like a different context to the whole situation. We'll never know how that affected those athletes when, what was it? It was a women's basketball team, there was a plane crash the morning of the Thursday night game.
Yeah.
It was just a bad situation, and the athletes knew each other, and, Oklahoma State's playing a football game the night of a horrific event. And even if that would have been played with no tainted situation that could have impacted it, Oklahoma State still won a conference with one loss. Alabama didn't win a conference and had one loss and already played LSU.
Right. Well, I would throw that in my basket if they got it right, just for the simple fact that I think that those were the two best teams.
Yeah.
And I knew that even going in.
Yeah, I did too. Yeah.
So, hey, last thing, Mark. You got a Heisman prediction for this weekend? Do you think we could see the first wide receiver win since Desmond back in 91? What do you think?
Yeah. I don't know what it is with the Heisman Trophy. My goodness, I used to sit here for the full hour, watch everything. I was really into it. The year that Eddie George won the Heisman, 2 weeks after Ohio State lost to Michigan in a crushing loss, I jumped around and ran around like Ohio State won the national championship. I went crazy when Eddie George, because I hadn't experienced Ohio State winning a Heisman Trophy.
Yeah.
That thing basically gets awarded on a Saturday, and it doesn't even, like, I have to be reminded by somebody of it. Like, it just passes me by, and I just don't even care. But I kind of have to care because of what I'm doing. Man, I should, you've given me a little project. I really should look at all the numbers, look at all the contenders, and say, this is the last time I remember being very invested. Again, not personally, but as in doing what I'm doing here, was in 15 and 16. I was big on Christian McCaffrey, got ripped off, and I was big on Deshaun Watson, got ripped off in 16.
Okay. No, I would agree.
Or was it? Yeah,
I
16. Yep.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it'd just be interesting to see this year if a wide receiver can get it, maybe make a little bit of history. But, you never know how they're going to divide it up amongst those Alabama players, though,
Yep,
So.
Exactly.
Good stuff, my friend, as always. A pleasure, Mark.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dave. Have a great night.
Take care now.
You too.
You too. Bye-bye.
Missed a few phone calls coming in right there. Wanted to let Dave get his last points in, and it was just a good conversation. And for those of you that want us to talk about 2020 all the time, I'm sorry. Sometimes when somebody drags me back to 2004 or whatever the date, I'm a sucker for those conversations and always have been. I love sports history. I could talk NFL history forever. I could talk baseball history forever. And let's not forget about those 2004 Auburn Tigers. Can you imagine an undefeated SEC team not having an opportunity to play for a national championship? Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's Michael. How you doing?
Hey, Michael. What's going on?
Hey, now, let's get a quick question for you. Just wanted to get your take on Arizona's hire of Jed Fisher's UL Monroe's hire of Terry Bowden. And I'll hang up. Thanks. Have a great night.
Thank you so much. I'll start with the latter coaching hire of Terry Bowden to Louisiana Monroe. Maybe it's because Terry Bowden got into the sport as a very young man, and he was the Auburn head coach, led them to an undefeated season under probation in 1993. That's another interesting topic when you start to look at teams that would have had shots at national championships but were under probation. 1993 Auburn. I actually arrived at my CBS job in Mississippi just months after that and started covering Alabama, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, and by extension Auburn and other teams. And Terry Bowden was there at Auburn and just had that undefeated, I believe they tied a game, 11-0-1. Might be wrong on that. It might have been 11-0. Let me take this call, but I got to finish the comments for Michael here. Because, Michael, I got to tell you, Michael, you always challenge me on the news of the day to come up with a reaction or response to something that I hadn't necessarily thought of. So I am surprised. I'd like to look up the age of Terry Bowden that Louisiana Monroe, at the stage that they are in the development of the program and kind of their status in college football, would go with somebody a little bit older rather than not an up-and-comer. That would be the only question I would have about that hire. But they may really want somebody to stabilize the program and give them that shot in the arm as a stabilizing factor, and then groom somebody under him. If I'm not mistaken, didn't Auburn win their first 25 or 30 games under Bowden in the first couple of years at Auburn? Bowden is 64. See, 64. Thank you so much for giving me the age. That's about what I would have guessed. No, he didn't win that many games. No. They went undefeated the first season. And then that was in 93. 94, they lost games in 94. So he might have won 15 in a row. Something like that. So that's my only question about that. Just doesn't seem like the kind of place that you would hire somebody in the twilight of their career. That's my only. But he's very capable. Did some things at Akron, as noted by David there in the live chat, that certainly Akron football is awful. And, he lifted them to conference contention a few times during his tenure there. It ended poorly. And then I'll get to the other coaching hire, which was Jed Fish, who I had a conversation with our Michigan guy today about Jed Fish and what a nice job he did at Michigan, also at UCLA. And more recently in the Mountain West Conference, and now coming down to Arizona. He's an offensive-minded guy that is very creative, and that seems like a good hire for the Wildcats. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
This is Joel, but I called you last week, and we were talking about the group of 5.
Yeah.
And I think I figured out a way to get the group of 5 in, the college football playoff.
All right.
You bring it to 6. Let them start their schedule a couple weeks early, so that way the 2 best teams in the group of 5 could play for a playoff spot. And then you have the 5 conferences get in, the 5 best teams. I just want your opinion on that.
Okay. I like that I love people that are creative and have some ingenuity, that they want to, you're thinking outside the box. So I love that part of it. Here's the 2 things I don't like about it. I don't like 6 teams because you have to have buys. You have to have buys. And there's such.
I guess you could have the number 1 seed get a buy in.
Are you an NFL fan?
Yeah, I'm an NFL fan.
Okay. Buys work.
My Falcons ain't that good. But
okay.
Kinda.
Buys work in the NFL because they have an objective system. And there's not an argument over who should receive the buys because there's a clear criteria to receive the buy. You have earned the buy. Do this for me. Look over the playoff era and try to determine who would get the buys each year. It's impossible to do. You cannot do it fairly. Look at last year. Clemson, LSU, and Ohio State all finished undefeated, played very good schedules. Who gets the buys? What 2 teams get the buy? And you could do that every year.
Get the buy.
Pardon me?
Last year, LSU would have got the buy.
Well, no. You need 2 buys in a 16 playoff. So what? I don't know why LSU would have just gotten 1, but anyway, you need 2 in a 16 playoff because you got to get it to 4. You have to have the other 4 play.
Okay.
So
I just thought I'd call and see how you would, what you thought about it. But appreciate it for the time.
And I love that you're thinking outside the box. That's good stuff.
I mean, I'm trying to get them in, man, because that dude deserves a spot.
Oh,
all this crime will stop.
Here's my favorite line to deliver about the group of 5 situation. What the College Football Playoff Selection Committee needs to be forced to do every summer is they need to go on a national tour, and they have to visit every group of 5 football team during 2-a-days, during August practices, when it's hot, when it's 98 degrees, and they're busting their tails and puking their guts out and working as hard as they can. And they need to gather the team together, say, my name's Mark Rogers. I'm with the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. Just want to let you know we appreciate your hard work and your efforts here, but you have absolutely 0 chance of making the college football playoff, even if you win every game 50-0. Thank you very much. Go back to your hard work. Bye. They need to be.
That's what they're doing anyway.
Exactly. So I appreciate you getting the group of 5 involved. I wrestle back and forth with that one.
Yeah, well, thank you for the call.
Appreciate it. Have a good night.
You have a great night.
You too.
Bye-bye.
All right. We got some great super chats coming in here. So let's get to those. I am going to mention again, and I do this from time to time, how amazing all of you guys are, because I understand the phone system sucks. I understand that the phone system is not what we want it to be. And I bought all this equipment, and it's been sitting here for a year, and I've worked on it, and I just don't get it right. And I need some help on that. But I thank you for you guys are extremely patient with the phone service and the call-in situation that is not what it needs to be. So thank you so much for your patience. I appreciate that. We'll get it right and we'll upgrade as we go along. Let me get to these super chats because we got 3 of them and you guys are amazing. Shane, thank you for the super chat. Mark, no one agrees. What's your take? 2001, Miami, an NFL Hall of Fame team. Yeah. Could they beat? Oh, no. No. It's possible that wasn't a usual college team. Shane, I understand it looks that way when you're watching an elite, just all-time great college football team. I know that it looks like that. You're getting duped by what your eyes are deceiving you. Your eyes are deceiving you because you watched the New York Jets or the Jacksonville Jaguars play on this level, and they're getting their butts kicked every week. And we actually did see the Jets beat the Rams. Take note of that. The Jets beat the Rams, who are capable of beating anybody in the league, handed the Rams a loss this past week. But that Jets team is playing at this high level every week, and they look awful. I know they look awful. They look incompetent. And then over here, you watch a 2001 Miami team play, and they're playing Virginia Tech and Temple and East Carolina and even the good teams, Florida State, and they're playing down at this level, and they look so great. They look amazing. Let's not get fooled by that. No, they can't beat an NFL team. Think of it this way as well. Of course, every player on the NFL team made an NFL team. They all tried out, were drafted, went through mini camps and training camps. And please turn down the audio, please, and I'll get to the call in just a second. They all earned an NFL spot. So they're all legitimate NFL players, all 53 of them. Miami has various NFL players. Maybe let's even give Miami the benefit of the doubt and say that they had 53 players on that roster that made the NFL, which I don't think they did. But they all reached the NFL at different times. They had some that were freshmen, some that were sophomores, some that were junior. So you got to split it 4 ways. So they had about 12 per class. And then on top of that, they were not the NFL players as 19-year-olds. They weren't NFL players yet. You couldn't take Willis McGahee as a 19 or 20-year-old and say, we're going to advance you 3 years. He wasn't the same player playing up against Virginia Tech as a 19-year-old as he would be as a 23-year-old or a 25-year-old. They're amazing athletes, and they are men that would, trample me in a heartbeat, but they're not the men that they would be in the NFL. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, who's on the line?
Hi, Mark. It's Ben.
Hey, Ben.
I was just calling in to ask you a couple questions about opt-outs and then one about the Florida football probation stuff. But first off, I would like to say these past few weeks in Florida football and Florida sports overall have just been kind of down, start off with the LSU shoe throw. Then you have, of course, the Keontae Johnson thing, and then you got that close heartbreaker to Alabama. Then I think just today, Keontae Johnson had heart inflammation when that happened. That made him collapse, and then Kyle Pitts, opting out. So there's a lot of stuff has gone on. But I have a question about the full probation, and how that happened. So I was reading something, and it said that they have been in compliance. Scott Strickland put something out on the Gator website that said they have been put in compliance. They have been compliant with the NCAA over the past year with the situation. So do they have probation for next year, or have they already had it? How does that work? So I've seen stuff about 2019, 2020 stuff taken away. Like nothing about the 2020, 2021, the 2021, 2022 season. So has this been like from 2019 until like the end of this year, or is this something that's going to happen in the future, like next year?
So those are headlines that I saw come down that I never got to because I was recording all afternoon. And unfortunately, I saw it after we recorded with our Florida person. So be looking out for those videos. We've got Jackie Franchuli with All Gators. That video is going to post tomorrow or maybe the next day. So you raised some great questions because I haven't looked into that. I'm surprised that in reading the articles that you did, that it didn't specify what years that would have covered. So we'll look into that. You just want to know when possible sanctions could come down.
Yeah, because it's just like, I've just been thinking, like, I read this stuff and it said that they were on probation for the past year, and Scott Strickland said that they have been in compliance with the NCAA for the past year. So I was thinking, like, it doesn't make sense. Like, why would they keep that until now? Or was this just a ginormous typo, just like the NCAA usually is? Like, what's going on here? What gives? Like, I don't understand. It's just so weird to think. Like, why would they keep this away if they did it all in this past season? Why would they keep it away from us until now?
So you're wanting to know why wasn't this brought to light, and when this was being investigated by the university for the past year in compliance with the NCAA?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they were trying to. They were trying to determine guilt during this time, if I'm reading that correctly. I haven't looked into the situation, so I'm not going to be able to give you an accurate answer as to where we stand on all of that.
And then my last two questions are, so it's kind of like Florida and Georgia. Florida, of course, the big hit with Kyle Pitts opting out to go, and possible Kadarius Toney, and maybe even a Trayvon Grimes opt out, depending on how everything unfolds. And in Georgia, Azeez Ojulari opted out, and that's their sack leader. So, what do you think? How do you think that affects both of those teams?
Yeah. So we have who did you mention besides Pitts and besides Trey Brown on the Oklahoma side?
Not on the Oklahoma side. For Georgia, Azeez Ojulari. I just want to know, like, what is your opinion on? Because, of course, I mean, I'm no offense to any Cincinnati fans out there, but I don't think they have much of a chance against Georgia. I mean, personally, they're a good football team, but in the end, I mean, I just don't think that a Tulsa win by a field goal is enough to prove that they could go up, head to head with Georgia. But does that affect UGA at all with Azeez Ojulari, which is their leading sack guy? Does that affect them at all? And then how do you think Pitts affects Florida? Because you could go off of 2 games, 3 games, go off like the 3-game stretch. Not the 3 games, because you can go off the Arkansas game or the LSU game when Pitts wasn't in. So, like, what's your opinion on those 2 teams when it comes to that?
My thought process is that Pitts is a much bigger loss, and this is why. So Kyle Pitts is a guy that makes game-changing type of plays in the Florida passing game that affects every other player on the field. He's a security blanket for Kyle Trask. He's the guy that he looks to in difficult situations, red zone situations, third down situations. And he also completely changes the coverage approach of the defense. The other guys are freed up because of Kyle Pitts getting so much attention. You take Pitts off the field, and then they can start to figure out whether we swing it toward Toney or in what direction that the coverage advantage should go and be focused on the other wide receivers. It just changes the balance of power to the defense. Not that Florida still can't score a lot of points and they don't have a lot of weapons, but he's the guy that's, I liken it to the downgrade that Ohio State's had at defensive end minus Chase Young and at cornerback with Jeffrey Okudah. They still replace those guys with 4 and 5 stars that coming into college football from high school are seen as just being just as freakish athletes as they are. But Chase Young and Jeffrey Okudah are 2 of the top 3 players in the NFL draft last year, and arguably the best cover corner and the best defensive end in the country to rush the passer. And you're going to replace them with good players that can run just as fast and jump just as high, but they're not as skilled. And that's what you got with Kyle Pitts. He's a unique player. He's a top of the line game changer. He is the best player at his position in the country. And he's one of the 5 to 10 best offensive weapons in the country. So it just changes. It's again, still an explosive offense, great playmakers, great quarterback, but they lose a lot there. Georgia comes at teams with waves of great, I don't want to use the term great, very athletic, very talented pass rushers that are disruptive players. Alogiari is a tremendous player, but Georgia has more. He's the best of the line of them, but they have depth along the defensive front. And also they just have a miles advantage over Cincinnati than Florida. Oklahoma could be a barn burner, best game of the postseason. Georgia should trample Cincinnati.
And then one last question before I go. Mackenzie Milton, the latest news he's going to FSU. Personally, I'm not about that. I don't think anything short of Trevor Lawrence or Joe Burrow could save FSU the way they are this season. So what's your opinion on FSU? I saw your FSU live stream earlier. So what's your opinion on Mackenzie Milton? What do you think he's going to do? I think he was a okay mobile quarterback when he was in his gold days over at UCF. So what's your opinion on how he's going to change maybe for the better or for the worse at FSU team?
We didn't talk a whole lot of Mackenzie Milton this week because we really covered that ground. We posted a live stream as soon as that was announced. And so if you really want to do a deep dive on Mackenzie Milton analysis, we talked about it forever as soon as it was announced. Mackenzie Milton, no, he cannot save Florida State. Florida State's awful. They are awful in so many areas. There wasn't a position unit at Florida State on offense or defense that played anywhere near expectations of a team that should go 8-4. They are that bad. They weren't competitive. For some reason, they were struck with a magic wand or something against North Carolina on one night. But other than that, and they held on for dear life after leading 31-6 to save that game.
It sounds like FSU holding on for dear life.
Yeah, they were up 31-6 at half, and they had a lot of plays go their way, and then they eventually won by 4 or 5 points. But the Mackenzie Milton, I see that as a tremendous move that had to be made. Their quarterback play is atrocious. They don't have a ACC caliber quarterback in the room. So if he comes and gets hurt, God forbid, we don't want to see that. It was still a roll of the dice, and he's still a just tremendous leader, knowledgeable player at the position that he would rub off and be just a tremendous asset as a leader in the quarterback room. If he can't stay healthy. Now, if he can stay healthy, he's the best quarterback that they've had since DeAndre Francois in 2016.
And they just have to hope he doesn't hit his girlfriend.
I don't know anything about that situation.
Yeah, that was an interesting one, but that's really it, Mark. But I was just wondering about FSU, a bit about Kyle Pitts.
Thanks, Ben.
UGA. So thanks for having my call.
Yeah, appreciate the call. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Attention, everyone. Attention. I know you're having fun in the live chat. This guy down here, the reactioneer, I hope Brent is still on the line with us. Oh my goodness. This guy, his YouTube channel, you're not going to waste your time watching my YouTube channel anymore. You go over to the reactioneer, especially early. For me, it's a late Saturday night usually, going into a Sunday, and he does an Elvis Sunday that's, it's a must watch. And Brent, I apologize for not commenting to your channel more. I know I did in the early days, or at least the early days for me on your channel. I don't, because it just seems like all I'm doing is typing on a laptop all day for 15 hours. And I'm just, I just need to force myself to at least leave some encouragement, because everybody head on over there. Brent, I don't know if you've been able to hang on. There it is. So Brent's still with us here. Thank you so much for the super chat contribution. It's amazing. Thank you so much, Brent. But in addition to that, I hope that if people just type in, I'm sure they can, the reactioneer in the search bar on YouTube, they'll be able to find you, because that's what people need to do. And if you love music, this guy can spin a phrase like few others. Like few others. I wish I had the golden tongue that this guy has. His just ability to kind of take the music, and most of us are big music fans and we're moved by music, but it's hard to express in a unique way. Well, this guy says things on his channel that I think that's how it hits me. I just couldn't express it like that. He can spin a phrase. It's phenomenal. It is great. Brent, I will tell you as well, it has been fun watching your, and I apologize because I'm a very hyper-focused person, and I love the things that I love, and so I don't miss any Elvis videos. Of course, I don't have a whole lot of time, so I don't catch much else, but that's what I focus on, and you do an amazing job. So everybody head on over there and check it out, subscribe. It's great. It's amazing. See, I can't spin a phrase like Brent. He would come up with words to fully, specifically detail what I'm trying to say here, and I just come up with amazing and incredible. All right, somebody else had a super chat in here. That I want to recognize. Gotta honor the super chats. Troy, thank you so much. That is very nice of you. Thank you for the entertainment. Hope you have a Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you, Troy, and to everyone. Thank you so much for the super chat contribution. For those of you who, for whatever reason, don't feel comfortable contributing here on the super chat, you can look me up on Venmo, PayPal, or Cash App. Just search Mark Rogers TV. All right. Anything else in the live chat here? Ben brought up the Florida off-field issues, possible sanctions, everything that's going on there. Need to take a dive into that. Certainly need to look into that. I did not have time today to really get into that. It was a lot of this throughout the day, and then the last few hours, more personal stuff. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate that. The NFL is boring. I don't know if this is true, but I believe the NFL has more female fans than college football. So my demographics here on this channel, and this is not surprising because I'm not the best looking guy in the world to look at, that it's like 94% male, 6% female. I think the NFL has more female fans, which kind of surprises me because you would think with all the pomp and circumstance of the cheerleaders and the bands and just the environment of college football in a normal year, that would be more attractive to at least the females that I know that get involved in sports, that it interests them. So we've got Cheryl, and then we've got a lot of, when I look through my subscriber list, and I haven't done this in forever, but I'll see certain females. Obviously, a lot of you, we don't know male or female, and that's fine because it's not distinguished in the handle, the YouTube handle. But with a lot of women, it's obviously, it's a name that we know this is female, and by the picture. And so I would be interested to know the allure to college football for all of us. One of the first videos I shot, and this was a long, long time ago. I don't even know if it's still on this channel because I started a channel and I called it On the Mark. Started with an On the Mark channel, and I might have posted about 20 videos, and I did Google searches and I found some other On the Mark out there, and so I switched up. But I posted a video, one of my first videos, basically why we love sports. What appeals to us to become so involved in sports and love it so much and become so passionate. And a lot of it is on the field, the intensity, the action, the strategy, all of that. Some of it's more structural, organizational. A lot of us are nerds and we like structure and we like to talk about organizations and how they work and personnel transactions and all of that. You've got your statistical component, then you have a huge emotional component to wanting a sense of community and belonging and wanting to attach yourselves to something bigger. I went through the whole list. Yeah, I'd forgot about that video that had passed us by a long, long time ago. All right. Dalton. Hey, Mark. Got to have Brian Knight, a.k.a. Bobby Durkins, on as much as possible. Dude knows what he's talking about and always gives out a great laugh to everyone. There's no question about that. So I know that Brian does a stream each week with Pigskin Pete. I believe they do.
The call will start at the beep.
But yeah, Brian's amazing. He's great. You know, when I get people on here that are smarter than me and more quick-witted than me, you know, it's like Steve Dace. We decided to put something together each and every week. And if you know who Steve Dace is, Michigan Podcast, he is a professional radio guy. And those guys are just incredible in terms of their incredible. If you could just stand by just 1 second, please. Those professional radio guys are phenomenal because they've got to be just so quick-witted.
How fucking dare you ring me? I will fucking eat.
Okay. All right. So we have these. I may not take a call for a while. So Steve Dace, radio guy, political guy, look him up, does the Michigan Podcast. So these radio guys that are truly good, you know, you got to be quick-witted. You got to be able to dissect a situation, analyze situations, turn a phrase, just be able to talk and have it make sense. And no, I'm not going to take a call for a while because there might be some complete moron that is still on the line because I've learned from doing this a number of times. Then you got me who has to work at it. Not that I really work at it now at the age I am, but when I first broke into broadcasting in regular TV jobs when I was first out of college, I worked at it. I'm not a natural communicator like a lot of people are. I'm more of a natural writer than I am a communicator verbally. I'm more of a writer, and the phone's just going crazy now. Now closed for 5 minutes, DB Shashi. So the writing portion of it comes more naturally to me, even though I don't do it anymore, than it does to talk. So Steve Dace and I don't know who approached whom, but we decided to, I think he approached me about the 10-minute, wanted to have me on his show every week. Bingo. And so then I appear on his recorded show each week on Michigan Podcast. We put this thing together called the 10-Minute War. Usually goes on for 25 minutes. And that's a nice challenge for me because a guy that's that good at what he does keeps me on my toes because I can't just go in there and slop around like I do a lot of nights here or talking to whomever and just show up, start talking. Don't give it a whole lot of thought about it. Do my best generally, but I don't have to be just on it. When I'm talking to him, I don't know what he's going to ask me. I don't know where he's going to take it, but I can't be just ho-humming along. I can't just mail it in with him. I got to try to bring it. Got to be tight. Got to be poignant with my comments. It's a different deal. All right. A number of people in here. Michael, do you ever follow your alma mater? That would be Kent State much in the MAC. No, I don't. I didn't even follow them when I was at school there, other than knowing that they sucked and lost every game. No, had no idea. And still don't, other than, of course, they reached a bowl game and won a bowl game for the first time in school history last year. I did watch that bowl game, not because it was Kent State, but because I generally, other than this year, ironically, this is the first year I'm doing this full-time, full throttle all the time right here. And what do you think? I'm 0 for 4 watching bowl games. We've had 4, 5. I haven't really watched. They've all been awful, for one thing. And I usually either watch live or DVR all the bowl games and just watch them at some point because I just feel like it's like my obligation. But it's funny because now I'm doing this all the time, full time. I don't have a job and I haven't watched the bowl games this year because I'm trying to build this. Oh, yeah. Where are we? Anybody else? Thought I saw some good comments in there. Yes, we're going to close shop here for a few minutes. Do we dare now? I think we're safe. Are we safe?
Press 1 to start the call. The call will start at the beep.
MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Jeez. Hey, I just want to go on a quick little rant about...
You go on a rant? You, Chase?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
I can't believe you got it in you to go on a rant. The floor is yours, my friend.
I just want to go a little bit of a rant on the difference between players opting out before the season and players opting out mid-season. If you're going to opt out like Jamar Chase did pre-season, that's okay. That's all fine and dandy. But if you're going to opt out in the middle of the season, you're quitting the team. I don't care what your draft stock is. I don't care any of that. When you make a commitment to a certain college, it should be in the contract and fine print that you have to play 3 years worth of games, not missing any games, and that includes bowl games. And if you miss games, then they add on to your games that you have to meet before you can go pro. I mean, you look at Kyle Pitts. I'm a Gator fan. He quit the team. You look at the Mississippi State running back. He quit the team.
You look at all these players at mid-season, they want to quit the team. I think that is the biggest, most cowardice nonsense you can do if you're a player at a college. I think it's incredibly selfish. I think it's stupid. And you know, quite frankly, if I'm a teammate of that guy, I'd want to go beat him up for being that selfish, thinking he's so much better than the rest of the team that, oh, I'm going to opt out. I'm going to use the word opt out phrase as an excuse for me to say, oh, I'm too worried about my draft stock, so I'm going to opt out. This is a problem in college football that's been going on for years. I think that a player should have to sign a contract that says that before you are pro eligible, you have to play a bare minimum of 3 to 4 years of college football games, and that includes bowl games. I think players are using the word opting out as an excuse to quit the team. I mean, what would you do if your son came to you and he was offered all this and was told he was going to be all this and Pop Warner, and he decides he wants to quit his Little League team to prepare for that, to quote-unquote prepare for Pop Warner. And the same deal goes for Pop Warner to high school. I would be very disappointed and upset if my son came to me and said something like that. I think it's incredibly selfish for a player to use the word opting out to quit mid-season because they're too worried about the precious draft stock. I think if you're going to opt out before the season in this quote-unquote COVID year, I have respect for you. I'm fine with that. But if you committed to that season and you decided to play a number of games and you quote-unquote opt out, you're quitting the team. And in my opinion, you should be punished. There should be a punishment for that. I think whether that be an award-type punishment, whether that be a draft stock punishment, I think a punishment needs to be in place that the NCAA hands out to these quitters, and I'm calling them quitters because they're not opting out, they're quitting. They're a bunch of quitters for quitting on the team mid-season. I think that is the biggest cowardice bunch of nonsense you can do to your football team and your quote-unquote brother. I think that is such a coward move.
Period. I'm going to cut you off right there, Chase, because I love what you have to say. I think you've made your point. I don't think you're going to say anything else that's going to add to it. You had a great statement there. So this is what I agree with. I agree with 90% of it because I feel the same way. Basically, and I don't know what the paperwork looks like when a student athlete signs a scholarship and receives a scholarship. I would think that the stipulation or the qualifications of the scholarship are that you are, as long as you're healthy, you receive your scholarship for as long as you are participating in athletics. And when there are practices and games to be played, you participate in them. Otherwise, you have your scholarship pulled. The issue is obviously these kids could care less about their scholarship once the season's over, or there's only one game left, a bowl game, and they say, screw it, I'm not going to class, I'm done, I'm preparing for the NFL draft. So I like your idea. I'm trying to poke some holes in it from a legal standpoint, but I completely agree with you. You know, one of the first times I saw this happening, this was quite a few years ago, one of the Oregon players, one of their top players, this was about 6-7 years ago, opted out of like a the Las Vegas Bowl. And not only did he opt out, he wanted to stick around the team. He still flew to the game. He still stood on the sidelines to provide moral support and be a leader. Well, you're not a freaking leader because you just quit on your team. You're not a leader. And I would have, if I was the coach, said, yeah, you're off the team. We don't want you in the facilities. You're not working out here preparing for the NFL draft. Get off campus. You're no longer a student here because you're not fulfilling your scholarship. You're healthy enough to play, but you're not going to play for us. So you're done. Bye. But coaches don't want to do that because they're not going to be backed up by the schools because they want to be able to recruit more athletes later. So they don't want to become the guy that's too stringent and tough that's going to tell these kids to do that, because then they're not going to be able to bring in more NFL caliber kids out of high school.
I completely agree. But the thing that irritates me is I think, let me
Is there
lay out
more?
my forms of punishment. My forms of punishment would be, one, the NFL should put certain sanctions on student athletes going into the pros that are juniors. If they opted out mid-season, I think they should have a round hurt. I think they should be hurt on what round they go to. I think there should be limits on rounds that they go to. That's the first option. And if you opted out in mid-season because you were fear of a quote-unquote COVID year, if you were in fear of that, and let's say you're a sophomore or something and you can't go pro, you should have face suspensions, face your scholarship being temporarily pulled, and you have to work to earn your credits back to earn that scholarship back. And the third option is outright scholarship pulling. And if you were quitting to go pro, then you're immediately removed off the active roster. Immediately. No question about it. Your scholarship's pulled, and you're immediately removed off that roster. And you don't get a college degree.
Well, I like the payback portion of that, because basically you were given a scholarship that runs through your senior year of college, so it runs to May, and here we are in December, and you're quitting on your team. Therefore, you need to pay back your scholarship that runs through the end of the year. The thing about the NFL, see, there's no connection between the NFL and college football, so you're not going to get the NFL to do anything. So that's not going to happen, because the NFL, all they care about is supplying players to their league. So they could care less what anybody does in college, unless it's a poor reflection and they have to evaluate it as, okay, is this a poor character person? If they beat women, did they do stuff like that that's going to not make them a good football player and keep them eligible to play in the NFL? That's all they care about. But you can't penalize them in the NFL. The NFL doesn't care. They don't care that they missed games for Florida. You see what I mean? There's no connection there.
Yeah. I mean, I think there should be, because let's say Kyle, look at Kyle Pitts. He quit on the Gators.
What's the incentive of the NFL to do that formally? They'll do that individually. Hang on. Let's say I have a pick in the top 5 of the NFL draft. I'm the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I'm looking at Kyle Pitts. They'll make their own evaluation, the Jacksonville Jaguars personnel department, to say, does him quitting on his team, opting out, does that have any reflection on him as what he could potentially do for us? They'll make their own judgment on that. But the entire league's not going to say, we're going to penalize you. No, that only hurts their league. That doesn't help them in any way. And the NFL is only looking out for themselves to make money. So that doesn't make any sense for them to do that.
I mean, I just want some sort of punishment. The NCAA needs to grow a pair, and basically what I recommend is the second the season begins, the second that football is snapped, the option of opting out in. You are not allowed to opt out throughout the rest of that season, because you committed to that season. And if you're Jamar Chase and you did it before the season and respectfully did it, that's fine. You don't face any punishment.
Chase, I got some other calls coming in. I appreciate the call.
Ahead.
Thank you so much. Okay, let's move on for a couple different reasons. Number one, I've got a bunch of calls coming in. Plus, I got to do a better job in those situations of once the point's made, okay, we don't need to make the point 4 times. Chase, it was a great call. You got some tremendous ideas there, and I believe in the spirit of what you're trying to do. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's DeAndre. How you doing, man?
There he is. I'm doing just fine. How are you? Thank you so much for the super chat that came down. I appreciate that.
Hey,
Happy holidays.
I know you need happy holidays to you too. I heard the gentleman speaking earlier about the players being punished for not playing in the bowl games, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So let me ask you this. College football and males basketball pretty much pay for the athletic department, right?
Yes.
Okay. So what percentage of these people are African American that play in both of those sports?
Oh my goodness.
We'll say about what, 65% maybe?
Yeah, obviously the NBA versus college basketball, there's a huge disparity there because you can watch some really good college basketball games and there's a lot of white dudes out there for whatever reason. But so I don't know what the number is, but yeah, that's a fair number, 65%, because it's the same thing when you watch, you know from watching not to pick on certain teams, but it's just a matter of fact. Iowa, Wisconsin, some other teams.
You're going to see more white guys than you will see black guys on the team.
But
my point is,
yes, get to your point.
that most of them,
sorry to hold you up there. You're right. Go ahead. 60%, let's say.
Yeah. Okay. So my point is, he wants these guys to go break up their bodies at the end of the season in a meaningless bowl game. I love the 80s. I wish every game ended on January 1st. Like back in the day, you couldn't wait to see who was going to be ranked number 1. You got a cotton, orange, sugar, all day. You got bowl games going on. I love that. But these players are not like that anymore. I mean, they don't think like, hey, why should I go hurt my team in a meaningless bowl game? Christian McCaffrey did it. Forsett did it.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the money in our goes to pay for other athletics. Like I give you an example. I don't think Clemson had a softball team to this past year, and so the money that the football team makes goes to help the other sports too. And everybody got to be paid the same amount of money. What is it called? The stipends or whatever.
Yes.
Everybody got to get paid the same amount of stipend. So my point is that they're making more money off of the guys that are playing football than what the return is. So you're telling me that these guys that play football shouldn't be paid more than the tennis players? And we all know tennis or softball players, and we all know that's not going to happen. Because everybody going to say, well, that's not right. But they make most of the money though. But then we come back and say they should play in this meaningless bowl game and risk their careers, and they draft stock. That doesn't. I understand where you're coming from, and I love that to happen, but we know it doesn't in today's society.
Okay.
I don't know if I made it clear enough.
You made it clear because there's just a change of mindset as we go through time in this country. If you want to go back to World War II, let's say, there was a different mindset. It was all for one and one for all, and we got a war to fight, and everybody's going to sacrifice in this. And that's why that generation was so amazing, is that there was just a different mindset. And that permeated into athletics where you played for your team. You didn't play individually. But then as we progressed, let's say into the 60s, and there was more thought about capitalism, there was more thought about how much money can we make, and there was more money brought into the sport, where before it didn't matter if, maybe the quarterback made $17,000 a year and the running back made $15,000 a year, and maybe you paid a little bit more here and there, but basically, they were all making what a factory worker made. So they just didn't think that way. But then the sports became popular. They made a ton of money. They started throwing guys like Joe Namath $450,000 contracts, and suddenly he's making $450 a year, and his guard in front of him still making like $28,000. And so then they start thinking of, and I think some of it was positive in that they, of course, they're the very best at what they do. They should be paid well. It's gotten completely out of control, but they should be paid well for being the very best in the world at what they do. But then, we went from, and players being able to fight for their rights, I think was a good thing to a degree. But now we've gotten to this point where, everybody's they're just looking out for their own careers. And so I have no issue with that. Yeah, they're getting beat up. And at that point in their career, they know that Kyle Pitts knows that playing this game doesn't do me any good.
Right.
If it could be guaranteed to him, if God could come down and say, you're going to play this game, you're going to catch 3 touchdown passes, you're not going to get nicked up at all, go play. But he doesn't know that. He could end his career on the first play of the game. So nothing can be guaranteed to him. And that's not worth sacrificing the millions that he's going to make starting in, April when he signs his contract after the NFL draft.
That's the point.
What I don't understand about it, DeAndre, if they're meaningless bowl games, if that's what they are, then why aren't regular season games meaningless? We have one of the best linebackers in the country from Maryland, Bolton, from Missouri. He opted out of his bowl game. Well, Missouri's been playing meaningless games for the last half of the season. Why didn't he opt out of those games? What's the difference?
I don't know. Maybe we could put more film out there. But we all know bowl games as traditions, the people that get away. But I could never understand growing up in the 80s why the tie-in for the Big 8 was the Orange Bowl. Like, what they got to do with each other? But, there's a chance for those people from the Midwest to travel down south and watch their school to play. But I just look at it differently from what he was saying. And I see his point, but at the same time, I just think you just got to look at the athlete's point because remember the Ohio State player? I think they were playing Notre Dame. And he tore up his leg. I think he still made the NFL. He's playing for the Cowboys.
Jalen Smith.
But he would have been, he would have been a higher draft pick if he didn't do that. Am I correct?
Yeah. He's made a great comeback. He's made a great comeback, and he's an exceptional player. But you're right. He was drafted like 16th or 18th, something like. I'd have to look that up. I don't think he dropped in rounds. I don't think he did. Maybe.
I don't think he went in the first. I don't think he went in the first round.
Okay, maybe he didn't.
I could be wrong. Yeah, I don't think he went in the first round. There was another linebacker. I think he played for Jacksonville. Justin Jack. I think that's him. I think same thing happened to him. So.
The UCLA player.
Yeah. I think the same thing happened to him. My point is, they make a lot of money off these guys. Them missing one game ain't gonna hurt all the money that they done made the university all those years. We can look at Johnny Manziel, to take race out of it, and look at what he did at Texas A&M. He pretty much built that locker room for them. Don't get me wrong. I know Texas A&M has a lot of money, but I just look at it from that point of view. It's like, these guys are missing one game. I can see they're playing for a national championship or something like that, but it's just a meaningless game at the end of the day. It's an expedition game. I get what you're saying, like, well, why not sit out the rest of the year? Like you said, Jamar Chase or I can't think of anybody else off the top of my head, but he's correct. They should have maybe did it early in the year, but also I look at it, you can't blame the young man for protecting their body for a university who's not going to give them any money after their scholarship is up.
I don't get the whole meaningless bowl game argument. I don't get it that the bowl games mean it. Again, if the bowl games are meaningless, then 60 or 70% of the college football season is meaningless as well. We're fans.
We fans. So we looked at it like, man, go out there and play.
No.
They
Hang on.
They,
This is my
Okay.
point. This is my point. This is how I'm stating this. This is the criteria I give it. That people say the bowl games are meaningless because they don't. Basically, you play the games to determine who a champion's going to be of the conference, of the nation. That's why games are played. And then for the teams that are bad and don't play into that situation, like an Illinois Rutgers game in November, they're just playing out the schedule to make money and play the games. But the schedule was built at the beginning to say, we're going to play all these games to determine who's going to win the championship of the Big Ten and the ACC and all these conferences. That's why you play, to determine who wins the games and determine who the best is. So once that's determined for a particular team that they're not going to be that team, their games are meaningless. So what's the difference between that and a bowl game? If anything,
at the same time, don't coaches put plays in that they want to see if they can play or not? It's like let's say, okay, this season's lost, we're 5 or 6. We're gonna put this freshman in from Spring Lake, North Carolina, let him go out there and finish up the last 2 games. Does the coaches do that all the time?
Sure.
I mean, it just give somebody else another chance to get a look on the field outside of that play. But I agree with you. I mean, I love those games back in the 80s and 90s, but I mean, this is just the time that we live in, and I got 2 sons, and they my son, my middle son was 13 pounds when he was born. He's a pretty big dude, and he loves to play football.
Yeah.
So I hope that if he may come up to that tourist and he says, Dad, Mark Rogers is the guy that you talk to all the time. He said I should play, but I'm going to be a first-round pick. What you think? No. Go ahead and sit down somewhere. You know, you protected the family right there. I mean, I understand. I see both points, and I miss those days, but I just think that we got to look at it, how much these athletes put out, how they help in the school standpoint about them winning. I mean, by having a winning football program, I saw that it increases the attendance at schools sometimes.
Yeah.
I think it was Alabama in 2009. Their attendance shot up when Nick Saban started winning. I mean, there were schools growing up that didn't even have football teams, like Campbell and University of Charlotte, and their attendance done went up here in North Carolina. So, I mean, football pays a lot, and basketball does too. I mean, Vanderbilt just fired their coach, and when the last time, I didn't know this, Mark. I was talking to a friend of mine. Vanderbilt has never won an SEC championship.
That's right.
I did not know that. That is amazing. I mean, that is simply amazing that they had never won an SEC championship.
I'm guessing they never will.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. You know, because at least I don't know what the Stanford last one was, but I know it was probably on the Todd Whittingham. They at least left up and got one.
Stanford's last Pac-12 championship?
Yeah, I mean, Whittingham, right?
No, it was under David Shaw. David Shaw.
Oh, they have?
2013. 2012, 2013. Those teams went to Rose Bowls. They won the Pac-12 championship. They won the Pac-12 championship with Christian McCaffrey in 2015.
I didn't know that.
Played in the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Mark, before you get me off here, I didn't know this either. Notre Dame has not won a major bowl game since 1994.
Yes,
Bowl.
I know that one. They beat Texas A&M back-to-back years in the Cotton Bowl. 24-3 and 24-21, I think were the 2 scores. One was close, one was a blowout. Yeah, those are the last 2. They're 0 for whatever.
I did not know that.
About 10 since then.
I did not know that.
Lou Holtz's last bowl game, they lost to Florida State in the Orange Bowl in 95. That was Lou Holtz's last team. It was a good game, but they lost to Florida State. And then Bob Davie took over. He didn't get them to a major bowl game. They went to a lot of subpar bowl games. Then you had Ty Willingham, and oh man, as you know, they went to the Fiesta Bowl and they got trounced by Oregon State, 41-9.
Right.
You know, they got blasted a couple times by Ohio State in the Fiesta Bowl. They lost to LSU in the Sugar Bowl with Brady Quinn at quarterback against DeMarcus Russell in 06. Yeah.
14.
You know, they beat LSU a couple times, but those were Citrus Bowl, Music City Bowl games. So they beat good LSU teams, but those weren't major bowls. And then under Brian Kelly, what is it? They lost the playoff game to you guys. They lost to Bama in the BCS championship game. And I guess that would be it for the major bowl games that they played under Brian Kelly. Yeah, I think that's it.
Wow, I did not know that. I'm gonna put some money on the money line for Notre Dame to beat Alabama. I'm not saying it's going to happen.
You're going to put money on the money line.
Yeah, for Notre Dame to win.
What's it paying?
I'll
Like
put like
$5.50?
I can't remember. I haven't looked at it, but I'll put $25 down.
Okay, well, if you want to throw $25 down the toilet, sure, because you could make whatever you're going to make, but I just don't see that being competitive.
Hey, you know, I'm looking at Villanova, Georgetown, 1985.
Sure.
Giants, New England. I can't remember the year the Giants beat them when they was undefeated. I just think Notre Dame is going to muck up the game, keep it slow it down a lot, and I think they're just going. I'm not going to say they're going to win, but I just think that they're going to keep it close.
DeAndre, what was the spread on the second? What was the spread on the second Alabama Clemson game? The Clemson won. Weren't they like a touchdown underdog?
Right.
And then Ohio State was a 10-point underdog against Alabama in the first playoff. I'm guessing that's the biggest upset we've seen. And as we found out, it really shouldn't have been a 10-point spread. But that would be the biggest point spread upset, I would think, during the playoff era.
Right. Yeah, 17. Yeah, probably so. Yeah. Hey, it happens. You never know. And, I mean, I knew Notre Dame wasn't going to beat Clemson because the Clemson defensive player, they got a lot of seniors on that defense. That defense is really nasty. I mean, they just shut down. Bussman couldn't get out the pocket, and I don't know if Alabama's seen a group of tight ends that Notre Dame has. But like I said, they haven't seen offense like Alabama either because that Smith kid, he's a monster. And Waddle coming back, man. Like I said, it's just $25. I was told don't bet nothing that you didn't have. So I'm gonna put $25 and see if they look up and win.
Yeah, 42-17 kind of strikes me as something in that range.
Okay, well, we're gonna find out. Like I said, I just think they're gonna keep it. I just think they might have a chance to upset them.
That's
I don't know why. It's one of those.
That's not my final pick. Well, for anybody who just watched the Alabama-Florida game, I don't think Florida's great. What's really surprising when you think about that is that Florida was able to move the ball that well, score that many points, and they can't run the ball at all. They don't even try.
I think Georgia's offensive line is really good. And if it wasn't that their quarterback had such a weak arm, I mean, Georgia was really in that game to the
yes.
Third quarter.
Oh, yeah. 7-8 minutes left. It was 27-24. Hey, DeAndre, I'm going to take this other call. I appreciate you calling, man.
Yeah, all right. I hope to get up with you soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Just let me know. DM me.
All right.
Thanks, man.
All right.
Just missed a phone call there. Please call right back in. Sorry about that. Had a great night, a lot of great conversation. Appreciate that because we got off to a slow start. That means not we. I got off to a slow start. I was a bit staggered coming in here because I had so much on my mind and so many things going on, which made me late. And so thank you so much for hanging with me. And I just needed to take some calls to get myself rolling. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hello. So I wanted to talk about what's been going on. I live in Fort Collins, and it's going on with these COVID restrictions at CSU just down the street from my house.
Yeah.
And the main thing is I was wondering what fake injury you have as a reason why you don't play professional sports. And put a damn mask on.
I kind of heard that one coming, but there we are. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hello?
Yes. Who's on the line?
Hello?
Hello? Okay. Must be midnight. Once it hits midnight, Eastern time here, of course. Okay, anything else in the chat? All right, been a good night. Thank you so much, Mark. I shut up the Ohio State fans with giving them 10 points against Clemson and winnings going to you. The Ohio State fans are just talk. Those damn Ohio State fans. I had some folks on Twitter all over me the other day for being a little too high on Michigan, giving Michigan too much time, having a Michigan helmet on my shelf. That was like the worst thing in the world. Mark Rogers TV, who's on the line? Hello?
Hey, I really, my name is Doug. I really enjoy the show.
Thank you. Appreciate that. What's going on?
Hey, just out of curiosity, how long have you guys been around?
Oh, my goodness. I've been doing this about 10 years.
10 years, huh?
Yeah. I had about 13 people watch.
And then how many can you take?
How many can I take? Well, I think I got a good 25.
How many fingers in yours?
Yeah. I knew that was coming too. All right. Good stuff. Appreciate everyone. Thank you so much. Bama wins over Ohio State 52-23. So it looks like the Buckeyes at least going to win the semifinal game. Wet Dream, you can give me 29. I'll take it if we get to that point, if Ohio State can advance. I actually have to pick those games, don't I? I got to predict these. Man, I've let down my Patreon folks. Patreon folks, whoever you are, I am so sorry that I haven't picked these games. That's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to pick the rest of the bowl games for the week. I'm sure you're just hanging on that. But I have never failed to not pick a bowl game until this year. And you would think with me doing this all the time, I'd be locked in on that. But I'm trying to do everything else that it has completely missed me that we actually have bowl games on that I got to predict. But it's great to have everybody on here. Thank you so much. Anything else in here? I remember that loss, Ohio State, Florida in the Natty. Yes, yes, yes. Buckeyes beat Bama. There's a national championship game prediction right there. All right. It's Christmas Eve tomorrow. You won't see me, but you'll see my videos coming out. So please look out for those. We've got a lot of good talk with Florida in particular coming up here. So Chase, Ben, got Florida videos coming for you and others right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. And you know what? I've done the work. I might as well follow through with it. I know it's outdated, but humor me here. I've compared Notre Dame, Texas A&M, and Oklahoma. I need to follow through with that video and cut it just because got to do it. And then I thought it would be interesting to compare my preseason predictions with the results in the standings. You know, take Mississippi State, for example. They went 3-7. I said 2-8. I had people jumping all over me about how horrible I was picking them to go 2-8. They went 3-7. Okay, I was off by a mile. All right, everyone. Appreciate the support, the loyalty. It's amazing. You guys are phenomenal. We've got something going here. Build the vision. Help us reach our objectives to keep us on the air here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. If I don't see any of you before, happy holidays to some of you. Merry Christmas to you as well. Enjoy your families, your friends, your loved ones, and we will see you right back here. Subscribe, hit the bell for the notifications. That way you know when we're going live, which the next time should be on, you know what? My Christmas day ends about noon. It's more about Christmas Eve for me and then just early Christmas Day. So who knows? I might be on here on Christmas Day and we'll see who joins us. See you next time. You know what? Last thing. Cheryl is doing an amazing job as our moderator. We have technically 9 moderators, but we have one that shows up consistently, and that's Cheryl. It's Cheryl. She does it all. So we need more moderators. If you would like to be a moderator, and Michael will hopefully clear up your situation because Michael would like to be one. You've got to make him one. Please let me know at MarkRogersTV@gmail. Go to MarkRogersTV@gmail if you would like to be a moderator, and we will get that set up. See you next time. Cheryl, see you next time. Thank you so much for your service and for being here. Merry Christmas, everyone. Trading Merry Christmas greetings. Anakin, I'm not going to be able to track this, so please just go to MarkRogersTV@gmail. MarkRogersTV@gmail, and leave me a message. I want to be a moderator. Thanks, Anakin. Everybody else, thank you so much. A Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. A lot of good greetings in here. Great to see all of you in here, David. And everyone else. Again, Murder Blaze, thank you so much. Look at that. I've never seen that. Thanks, Mark. Merry Christmas. Ex-Rogue Jokers. Welcome to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. It's always great to see a new handle in here, even if you've been watching forever and just decided to comment. That's good stuff. And again, Murder Blaze, great to see everyone here. Aesthetics, Hardstyle, thank you so much for doing that. That's funny. That's amazing. I find it amusing, but it's great that you've got all that in mind with the channel in mind. Thank you for that. Boomer Coslet, maybe that's intended for me. I've forgotten more than you'll ever know, clown. Maybe you have. Congratulations. Merry Christmas.